We have notes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Book versus Movie, the podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies, and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com, and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
So we are wrapping up, even though it's June 1st as we record this, we are wrapping up Mysteries in May. This year, we decided to devote the entire month's programming to adaptations of the work of the incomparable best-selling author, second only to the Bible and Shakespeare, Miss Agatha Christie. And we did actually two Poirot adaptations. Last week, we did See How They Run, which is inspired by her longest running play on Earth in world history, The Mousetrap. But we had to cover an adaptation of a work featuring her other most famous creation, Miss Marple. So today we're going to be discussing The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. Um, I I don't know that I've watched all of the Miss Marple series that there ever was, because I do love Miss Marple. But I don't know. I think this might be the first Marple book I've ever read.
It
But
was for me.
yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Agatha Christie. Her we've talked about her all month long. I don't really know what else to say about her this week, except that um again, so underrated. I wonder why. Patriarchy.
Mhm.
Um, she's never given the credit that she deserves. And that is one thing that she definitely has in common with her very popular character, Miss Marple. So Miss Marple is a very interesting character. Unlike Poirot. So Poirot is so much fun, as we've said over and over again. Poirot, though, is everywhere he goes, people are like, "Oh, it's Poirot, the most famous detective in the world. Uh-oh, Poirot's here. Now he's going to be onto our schemes." And so people know him as a brain box. People know him as the most brilliant detective in the whole wide world. Miss Marple, though, is a spinster. Um, so she's discounted and underestimated for so many reasons. Number one is she's a spinster. Number two, she's an old lady. Number three, she comes from a podunk little village, St. Mary Mead. She's not a sophisticated London, wealthy widow of high society. She's from this little podunk place. She never married. She's exactly the kind of person that society, even today, just completely overlooks and is invisible to everybody. And yet, she is at least the equal of Poirot, if not his better. She's in many ways a lot smarter than Poirot and a lot more. She catches on to things that Poirot might miss in some of the because Poirot often misses things and then he berates himself later. Whereas she's very sharp and she's always picking up on everything all the time. And that's something that Agatha Christie, of course, experienced herself in her lifetime, although she was not a spinster.
Mm.
But it was a character, an archetype that she was very interested in exploring. And she had a similar, she makes a couple of attempts in the Poirot series of introducing a character that's like a Miss Marple. One of them is, oh, what is her name? Oh my goodness. What's your name? She's in The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Carolyn Shepherd um, is a spinster a character who's also very smart and very shrewd. And there's also a character I really can't remember her name, but she's in the Halloween story. She's a friend of Poirot's who's a mystery writer, a la Agatha Christie, but she's also like a very shrewd spinster who sees everything she and Poirot are like really work together really well. Um, but Miss Marple is is in a league all her own. I mean, she's been interpreted on screen, I think maybe even more times than Poirot by more
I
actors.
think so, yeah.
More, right? And I said this last week, and although I have many issues, which we'll get into, and I think you do too, with the film that we're gonna talk about today, I have to say I've not met a Miss Marple I don't like. For the most part, I think the casting of Miss Marple over the years is just really has always been really good. Margaret Rutherford is the one who set the bar, and if you are not familiar with Margaret Rutherford, do yourself a favor, spend some time on YouTube investigating her work. She is one of the I mean, she's on par with David Suchet in terms of character acting, and she is extraordinary. And she was the Miss Marple of Agatha Christie's lifetime. But famously, um, when Agatha Christie was alive, she did see a young Joan Hickson on stage and was very impressed by her and sent her a note saying, "I do hope one day you will play my Miss Marple."
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and she might be my favorite Miss Marple, Joan Hickson. But I do love them all. June Whitfield, who many of us know as the grandmother from Ab Fab, played Miss Marple on the radio, and those are really fun too.
Those are very fun. I listened to one of those
They're
for
good,
just, yeah.
right? Yeah. And I really like, Julia McKenzie played her on ITV, and there was another one, Geraldine McEwen also plays her in that same series. They had 2 different Miss Marples for some reason. And they're both wonderful. And each one of them brings a new angle, new insight into the character. The first Miss Marple book is Murder at the Vicarage. And unlike Poirot, where we're going to exotic locations and, Mesopotamia and Egypt and um, France, and, Miss Marple, it lives in a very dangerous little village.
Did people get strangled on the street, like from their fiance?
All over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah. I think one of the book talk people I follow, she has a coffee mug that says "Straight out of Saint Mary Mead." It's like yeah, it has its own reputation for being a rough place. That's a good point to make. I mean, her, I would say, are more cozy mysteries that we're it's about tea, it's about relationships, about who saw who going out of the store there, versus the Poirot ones, which is they're always they're on a train or on a bus or on a yacht or flying somewhere. So it's a little more downsized. I mean, I think this is a really interesting book. It was written in 1962, so Agatha was up
Later
there.
on, yeah.
Yeah, this is after her. She's done the plays. She's settling down in England. It's an interesting story because it's about an actress, and it's an actress who we constantly told how middle aged she is. She's probably like 10 years younger than us. I think
It's
about it.
true.
I mean, just like of the time.
Yeah. And similarly, in a similar way to, Jessica Fletcher and, Cabot Cove, which, I mean,
Yes,
it's I'm
that's the. I
that's
mean,
we wouldn't have if sh
that's the juggernaut.
Miss Marple ran so Jessica Fletcher could fly.
Yes.
Um, but in a similar way where we're in this village and the reader who's reading these stories gets to know all of the individual characters. You get to know the vicar, you get to know, um, Cherry, who is, the young woman who helps Miss Marple around her house. Um, there Miss Marple has a very, very dear friend named Dolly, who first shows up in what is the name of that story? The Body in the Library. And in The Body in the Library, there's a body discovered in the home of Dolly and her husband, whose name is Arthur, I think, Gossington Hall. Like all of a sudden one day there's a body in the library. And spoiler alert. Now last time we didn't spoil, this time we're going to spoil everything,
Hmm.
everybody. Like it's too hard to not spoil. Spoiler alert, the murder did not happen at Gossington Hall. It happened someplace else, and somebody just brought the body to Gossington Hall and deposited it there. So when this story opens, Dolly's husband, Arthur, has died. Dolly has decided that um, she cannot manage the upkeep of Gossington Hall all on her own, and it wasn't really her favorite place to live anyway. She kind of moved there for her husband. And so like a lot of people, again, and the other thing about Marple is we're in a post-war landscape now, which is very different than the world of Poirot. It's after the war and everything, and she decides to sell Gossington Hall and move into what was essentially like a guest lodge, like a hunting lodge on the property. So I'm sure it's a plenty big house. I'm sure it's very nice. But she now lives like on the outskirts of what was her whole like estate that she had with her husband. And in the book, um, in the book, Gossington Hall changes hands several times. Like at one point, it's sort of like a B&B, and I think it serves some sort of purpose during the war. It's just it goes up and down as it passes through various other people who have bought it, and eventually it is sold to a movie star named Marina Gregg, who, as you may say, is a fading flower of the silver screen.
Of like 45 or something.
Probably, like, if
yeah.
that. Probably not even that, because her child is not that old,
No, you're right.
right? Um, so she's been out of the limelight for a while, but she is preparing to make her screen comeback, and she's moving into Gossington Hall with her husband, who is also her director in her comeback project. And she is American. They're both American. Oh, something? I don't know that we brought this up last time, but maybe we did. Agatha Christie's works always have like Americans on the fringes of the story, like or at the center of the story. There's always an American element, and Agatha Christie herself had American roots. Um, and seemed to be very interested in American culture. And so here we have, our main characters of Marina Gregg is the movie star, and her husband is Paul Rudd, the director. And they have purchased Gossington Hall, and
Jason
they've
Rudd.
they've given it, yeah, Jason Rudd, and they've
Paul
given it
Rudd's the movie star.
they've given it a Hollywood makeover. And again, it's after the war, where in Britain things were still kind of austerity times in Britain. They don't have a lot of resources. So one of the things I love about this book is all of the little details that she includes particularly about Gossington Hall. Like, there's a lot of fuss made, not only by Dolly, the former owner of Gossington Hall, but the entire village, about the fact that they have put real marble in the bathrooms. First of all, they've put more bathrooms in Gossington Hall, and with real marble, and like everybody's oohing and awing about the fact that they've got real marble in this house. And because they don't have access to a lot of luxury things like this. Even somebody who would have owned Gossington Hall didn't have access to a real marble bathroom. So um Marina Gregg says that, yes, they're there to make this film, but she also loves England. She's got some kind of English roots herself. She just wants to settle down and like start a new life, um, and she wants to become part of the village life of St. Mary Mead. And to that end, she has decided to keep the tradition that Dolly and her husband Arthur had. Dolly and her husband Arthur used to host like a summertime fundraiser slash carnival slash county fair as a fundraiser for a local hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so Marina's like, oh, this is great. What a great way to meet everybody in the village all at the same time. Yes, of course, I will continue the tradition of having the carnival for the hospital let's do it. Let's go ahead and plan it. And so then they make all the preparations for planning this, but on a Hollywood scale, right? Oh, and we also meet. They have staff that they've brought with them,
Mhm.
right?
She has a secretary.
Who's a
Um,
man?
yes,
Yeah.
but there's who the husband has a secretary too that has a crush on him. She's trying to get in there. Um, yes, and then there's also, I'm trying to see. There's Ella Zelinsky is his secretary.
Yes, that's the one that's in love with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So they do have like a staff with them already, but they also like they do things. They do it very over the top. They have a brass band, which I wouldn't bring a brass band to a that. Oh, that noise.
It's so loud. Like you
It's so I would like the string quartet actually sounds really lovely,
I
but
know, but
that would be
okay.
just me. Okay. But they do it very over the top and they're going to have all these people over. And then one of the people that's really excited is, and this is kind of convoluted, but I'm forgetting her name. She's the first victim, but she's the one.
Yes. So so this is so an interesting thing about this story, this Miss Marple story is and all of the adaptations early on, very early on in the story, Miss Marple injures herself. Now, in the book, because again, it's post-war, so the book is a lot about post-war Britain, not in the cities. So we're in St. Mary Mead. It's after the war. Again, it's these austerity times. People are selling off their lavish manor homes to rich Americans. And also, the government is building affordable housing for people to move out into the country, get them out of the city, move them out into the country. And so, St. Mary Mead has a new housing development, which they simply refer to as the development. And there's also a character, it's in the Joan Hickson version and it's also in the book, but I don't think it's in any of the other adaptations. There's a woman named Miss Knight. So Miss Marple lives on her own. She's a spinster, as we said, and she has Cherry, who comes and cleans her house and makes her tea and stuff like that. Just a light housekeeping sort of thing. But Miss Marple has some nephews, and one in particular who I think is a cop, and he's very concerned about Miss Marple, like she's getting up in age. She needs maybe a little more looking after than Cherry's doing, like somebody full time. And so he hires this woman, Miss Knight, who is means well, but really is all up in Miss Marple's grill. Miss Marple's like, can you not, like, I can do stuff myself. I actually can go and get my own cup of tea. I actually can do this. And the woman's like, no, we need to take our nap now. And so Miss Marple sends Miss Knight off on a wild goose chase. Like she says, like, oh, could you go to the store and get me this and that and this and that and this other store and this other store over here, knowing that Miss Knight loves to shop and also loves to be helpful. So she's like, okay, Miss Knight's tied up for like all the afternoon now. And so she decides she wants to go, Miss Marple wants to go and explore the development. What's going on there? Who's moving in? Because she needs to know everything that's happening in St. Mary Mead because she's Miss Marple. So she goes and she sees, like, it's all young people coming in from the city. She sees a young woman whose husband is speaking to her, or not husband, boyfriend is speaking to her in a disrespectful way. And she just kind of casually sidles up to the young woman, is like, just you're not really marriage material, this guy, if you don't mind my saying, he really should really treat you with more respect. Um, and she's just observing all of the different kinds of people who are in the development. And I can't remember if somebody kind of bumps her over with their bicycle or something like that, right? And she
Yeah.
falls. She has a little spill, not terrible, but she sprains her ankle or something like that. And she falls in front of the home of a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Badcock, not Babcock, Badcock, Badcock, who live in the development. And Mrs. Badcock rushes out and sweeps up Miss Marple and brings her inside and makes her tea. And and she's very nosy too. She wants to know who Miss Marple is and where did she come from and where was she going and does she know this? Does she know about the fact that Gossington Hall has been purchased by a movie star? And Miss Marple's like, yeah, my friend Dolly used to own that place and she lives right on the property and everything. And then was like, oh, I can't believe it. She's my favorite movie star of all time. I dream about her. She's very into Marina Gregg, and she goes on quite a bit. And she starts to tell a story about she met Marina Gregg once when she was a young woman, like not quite a child, maybe like 12, 13, something like that. And in the Bahamas, something to that effect. And she starts to tell the story, and Miss Marple is like sort of listening and sort of not listening, and just trying to figure out how to get out of there. And so she makes it home, and the doctor, Miss Knight, of course, freaks out because Miss Marple's hurt herself.
Hmm.
As soon as her back is turned, Miss Marple runs off and hurts herself, and so she calls in the doctor, and the doctor's like, "Yeah, lady, you cannot be walking around on this ankle. Don't be running any marathons or anything like that anytime soon." And so Miss Marple is laid up for she's going to miss the big carnival. And I think she maybe goes for a little bit.
Yeah,
But
but it's an
she
odd choice, I think, to have her injured. Like she's already old. She's already.
Yeah,
I
but
I,
she's
I didn't
laid up.
understand it. Yeah, she's laid
Well,
up.
it's because Marina Gregg and her husband, they're hosting this whole big thing with the brass band and all that. And they also are extending special invitations to certain special people to have like a VIP reception inside the house, of like up on their little mezzanine level. So Dolly, Miss Marple's friend, being the former owner of the house, is one of those VIPs. So if Miss Marple had been fine, she would have gone with Dolly because they're like besties. So it's like this is the reason for Miss Marple not being in the house and seeing everything that happens firsthand. So she's laid up at home and she's hearing about all of what transpired secondhand from the different people who were there, which is an interesting approach to
Hmm.
this mystery, because she's literally solving it from her armchair. um so Dolly is very excited, and she's in the house, and her friends, other friends who are there, who have also been invited into the house, are like, Dolly, is it true that they put like 6 more bathrooms? Is it true that they have real marble? Do you think we could get a tour? Do you think we could see it for ourselves? And so Dolly asks Mr. Rudd, now I want to call him Paul Rudd.
I
Uh,
know.
she asks Mr. Rudd if it's okay if they all have a snoop around. And he's like, yeah, take a bath, for all I care. Like, go ahead. So Dolly also doesn't quite see quite everything that happens. But here's what happens. Marina and her husband are standing at the top of the staircase up into, like I said, this sort of mezzanine area where they've set up a reception. And it's very formal and fancy in Hollywood. And as people are coming up the stairs to meet them, there's somebody, like a butler, like actually it's her assistant, making an announcement, like, Mr. and Mrs. Heatherton from, the head of the hospital, board are here, here they are. And one by one, they're greeting them, they're getting them drinks, they're ushering them inside. Dolly, has her moment with them, and Dolly's enjoying her cocktail. She's chatting with her other friends who want the tour of the house, and Miss Badcock and the vicar, Mr. and Mrs. Badcock and the vicar, I think, are all together. And the vicar says, "Oh, this is Miss Badcock. She volunteers for us, with the ambulance service, and we don't know what we would do without her. She's the most helpful person on earth. She's just a godsend. Gosh, she's a peach. Here she is, Heather Badcock." And Heather Badcock is what we would say today, cringe. She, right?
Right.
She goes on like, "Oh, you don't recognize me, do you?" to Marina Gregg, the movie star. We met one time years and years. She keeps going on about how long ago it was. Years ago, years and years and years ago, when you were a star. Years ago, when you were famous and beautiful. Years ago. And Miss Marina Gregg's like, yeah, great. Yeah, great. She's sort of half listening, sort of not listening. And she tells this story, Heather Badcock does, about how they were in Bermuda or something like that. And she was there as a volunteer with this same, hospital
Hmm.
ambulance service. And she's told she can't, she's sick, and she's going to miss seeing her idol Marina Gregg perform for the troops. But she doesn't let that stop her, because she's a go get 'em kind of gal, Heather Badcock is. And she gets herself out of her sick bed, and she slaps a bunch of makeup on her face, and she gets right down there to see Marina Gregg in person, and she even gets to meet her.
And Marina Gregg is unknowingly is pregnant. I don't know if she even knows she's pregnant or not, but but she is pregnant. And this woman has rubella, which is German measles, which is very, very contagious and you should not be around a pregnant woman if you have that. And so and this is what happened with Jean Tierney. Is this what happened? Jean Tierney, we've talked about before, where she was out at a USO thing, and somebody was very sick and they met her, and the same thing, her child had developmental disabilities.
Yes. Jean Tierney, and I mean, this is at a time when, we did not have the resources that we have now, right? And we didn't know enough about developmental disabilities. And so, I mean, sadly, the treatment was rather barbaric. Jean Tierney, and it was not unlike Agatha Christie to take a story from the headlines like that. It's something she's done multiple times in
Yeah,
multiple
any
works.
smart writer would do that,
Yeah, of
actually.
course you would.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's like it's the what do you call the
like the Law
dun
and Order of
dun?
it.
Yes, the Law and Order of its day.
Yeah.
Jean Tierney at the time was married to Oleg Cassini, the fashion designer, who famously, it's all like everything's interconnected. Talk about the whole Hollywood thing, and that's another thing that she sort of borrowed for this story. So Jean Tierney, um, who we talked about Laura. There was another Jean Tierney that we did. I can't remember off the top of my head. Gorgeous,
Beautiful.
so talented, famously was very, very seriously involved with a young JFK. And they were in a very, very serious relationship. But I think she wasn't Catholic, something like that. And also, she was a movie star, which was a little bit looked down upon. Like the Kennedys definitely had like a trajectory that they wanted their kids on. And marrying a movie star was not on that trajectory.
And
And
JFK Jr. even got that because of Daryl
yeah,
Hannah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because of Daryl Hannah, even that late in the game.
Hmm.
And so JFK, of course, marries Jacqueline Bouvier. Jean Tierney then goes on to marry Oleg Cassini. And as Margot said, she's entertaining the troops. She's pregnant with one of I think they had two daughters together. And one of them is born severely developmentally disabled, which is absolutely devastating. I'm sure uh, contributed to the breakdown of that marriage.
Yeah.
Oleg Cassini, the one thing he's most famous for, he's famous for a lot of things, but the thing he is most famous for is creating the signature globe sweeping look of Jackie Kennedy in her White House Camelot days. Like all of the things that you think of, that she's including that suit that she's wearing in Dallas, Oleg Cassini.
The pillbox hat.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's him. He did all of that. Even when she wore other designers, it was influenced by the look of Oleg Cassini. And and then she later married Howard Lee. And Jean Tierney had, and this is where I think it's like, I think Agatha Christie went like a little too far in terms of borrowing from the story. Jean Tierney had multiple mental health, crises
Hmm.
during and after this time, electroshock treatment and the like. And really, I think that the one thing that I think is so, again, not talked about enough, um, Jean Tierney went on to be a vocal, fierce warrior for mental health and mental health awareness and better mental health treatment, seeing mental health as part of your whole body health, really out there before almost anybody else.
Hmm.
Uh, at great, kind of risk to her career, really. Just so outspoken at a time when nobody was talking about this. Um, so I mean, I just really admire her for a lot of reasons, apart from the fact that she's absolutely beautiful and
Right.
super talented. So knowing all of that, we have Marina Gregg, who, as Margot said, like, has a similar thing. Is a fan with rubella, gets too close to her when she's pregnant. It's very dangerous. She has a child who's developmentally disabled and has a very serious nervous breakdown. And that's why she's left Hollywood. That's why there's this gap in her career. And this is her comeback.
Right. And she also adopted 3 kids before. And
Yes,
then
before she
they
was
got
pregnant.
before she was pregnant, and then she was pregnant and the baby had issues, and they had to put the baby, they institutionalized this poor baby. And then the other kids were sent to other schools and stuff because she couldn't handle it.
Right.
She completely had a nervous breakdown. So they were all taken care of, but they weren't taken care of by her. So
She was not mothering them. Yes. Yes.
right, and
Right.
because she had her limitations, just as a human being. So here she is. This is her big chance. So she's kind of doing it in a way like, I'm going to pick this little village in England. We'll make a cozy little movie here. My husband will direct me. I'll know everybody that's there. It won't be too shocking. It's not like being in LA or New York. It's just the pressure will be much different. And I'll start here, and maybe hopefully I can then, down the line, do more high profile things. But for now, it's just for them, it's a nice step. They want to.
Yeah, they're just kind of getting their toes back in the water, and yeah. And so they're having this big party to become part of the community right away. And that's really important to her too. And so Miss Heather Badcock, unknowingly, because she doesn't know like who she knows, she probably got it from a fan, but she doesn't know who from. And here's this woman who's just telling her like, "Hey, guess who I am?"
Guess who I
And
am? I'm the one who did that. And then she goes into this like catatonic state because in her brain, she's doing what we all
she's
do.
doing all the math. The wheels are
You see
turning.
that gif, of the woman with the math problem like
Yes,
around her.
exactly
Like
that.
she's doing that. Like, wait a second, was that you? Because I was pregnant, and then what happened was blah blah blah. And this woman's just talking at her like it's the greatest story ever, and she's taking in like that was one of the worst moments of my life. Like that completely changed
Everything. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
devastated my family, everything. Not her fault, but it's also was like, yeah. So she's staring off, and people think she might be staring off at one of the paintings on the wall.
Or at her. So we talked about like with Jean Tierney, her husband is ending up, being famous for designing clothes for her ex-boyfriend's wife, in the White House. We have a similar sort of situation with our Marina Gregg. Marina Gregg, I can't remember. Marina Gregg was married to this other producer named what's his name? Fenton. What is your name?
I can't. Sorry.
They
I
call
know
him
she's.
Fen.
Isn't she married to the woman who's talking to her right now? Wasn't she married to her husband?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a producer, the producer of the film, her comeback film, it is Marina Gregg. Marina Gregg's been married like 6 times. One of her ex-husbands is also producing this comeback film. So she has an ex-husband producing, her current husband directing. Okay. Her current husband's ex-girlfriend is now getting it on with the producer, aka Marina's ex-husband. So it's all mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
And Marina doesn't know that her ex-husband, the producer with the girlfriend that used to be her husband's girlfriend, she didn't know they were coming, and they are on the stairs. So at this exact moment, these surprise, we're not happy to see them people are also on the stairs. So is she reacting because she's seen them? Nobody knows, because nobody else knows what's going on with Marina. So cut to seconds later, Heather Badcock dead as a doornail.
Yes. Well, they sip a drink. They have daiquiris.
They have daiquiris.
And then her drink falls out of her hand, and so Marina gives her, is that her name? She gives her drink, and then the next thing you know, you see her in a chair, and she's just keeled over and just is dead.
Right.
So they're like, whoa, what do we do? They call the doctor. They're trying to figure out what's wrong with her. And then what happens is Marina thinks someone was actually trying to kill me.
Right. Because
Someone
it had
put
been her
poison
drink.
in her drink
Yeah.
that killed her. So she's now freaking out, like, where do we live? What's going on here? And so that's then other people, there are other victims. There's Giuseppe, who's like the butler, Italian butler.
Yes. He's not very present in most of the adaptations. He's more of a figure in the book than he is
In one of the
certainly in
radio
any.
plays I've
Yeah.
listened to, because of the
Yeah.
voice, the
The
Italian,
accent.
the
Yeah.
accent, they use him a lot. And then I'm trying to think of like who the other victim is.
The other victim is Ella, the personal secretary to Paul
Right.
Rudd.
To Paul Rudd. So we have these deaths, and then also she has a frenemy who's another actress that's showing up, and they're trading quips, which is the clip we play at the top of the show.
Yes.
They're throwing shade at one another, but this person isn't like killing her. This person is just
No, although there was an incident where I forget one of them actually did fire a gun at the other one's head.
they have a history.
They have a history.
Yeah, and so everyone's talking about, well, what killed this woman? Is somebody trying to kill Marina? Are they on the set? Are they in the crew? Is it somebody on the staff? Is it
Yes.
somebody? So that's what that basically they're all just trying to figure out. And Miss Marple talks to people, and she has a nephew that works for
Correct.
Scotland Yard. So
yes,
he
because
comes in.
it's
Yeah.
because it's a high it involves this high profile celebrity. Scotland Yard is involved, and they send one of their best detectives, who just happens to be the nephew of Miss Marple. And so Miss Marple has, although again, she's very much written off certainly by police that she encounters in the stories. Scotland Yard are aware of her
Yeah.
and know her to be a helpful resource, let's say. And so when they're dispatching her nephew to St. Mary Mead, they're like, oh, well, if you're going to be in St. Mary Mead, you really ought to talk to this Miss Marple. She seems to know always what's going on out there, with all the murders happening all the time. And he's like, yeah, I'm way ahead of you. She's my aunt. So he is doing his police thing of interviewing everybody. And but then he's going and checking all that he learns with Miss Marple. So Miss Marple's getting all the tea from everybody in the village. There's also someone who is making phone calls to all of the people involved, saying, I know you did it. I know you're the murderer. I saw it. So what killed Heather Badcock was an overdose of a drug known as Calmo.
It's a tranquilizer.
Which people all in Marina Gregg's household are popping like Tic Tacs. And so there was a lethal dose in that particular daiquiri, which killed Heather Badcock. And so somebody is making blackmail phone calls to all of the people who were at the party. I saw you do it. I saw you slip the tablets in the glass. I know that you're the one. And most of them are like, and hang up the phone because they know they didn't do it. And I think Dolly at one point spots Ella, the personal secretary who's in love with Paul Rudd. She spots Ella using a payphone, which is unusual because there are plenty of phones in Gossington Hall. Why would you use a payphone unless you were being secretive? And of course, she tells this to Miss Marple, and Ella winds up dead. Ella has hay fever and is sneezing and achooing and complaining about her hay fever every time we see her in the book. Every time she shows up, she's complaining about the weather there. She doesn't like being at Gossington Hall. She doesn't like being in the country with all these trees and plants that are constantly aggravating her hay fever and making her sneeze and giving her asthma. And she has an inhaler that she uses.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that she's killed is she goes to use her inhaler, and someone has put, I think it's prussic acid in the book, in her inhaler, which she then inhales into her nose. And apparently it's a rather grisly, gruesome way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so now she's dead. Now we've got two murders on our hands, and um, Marina Gregg. There's an episode where she believes she's being poisoned on the set of her movie. Her coffee's been poisoned. They
Mm-hmm.
send it to be analyzed, and sure enough, there's poison in the coffee. She also claims to have ransom notes that have showed up, um, and Miss Marple is getting all of these little bits and pieces. And meanwhile, Miss Marple is pumping Dolly for information. Like, tell me everything you remember about the party. Tell me absolutely everything you remember. And Dolly talks about, well, I remember Heather Badcock was going on and on. It's so funny to me. Like, the woman is dead. And everybody who talks about Heather Badcock is like, ugh, her. I mean, and she's not a bad person. Everyone agrees, like,
No, she was annoying.
she's a kind person. She was just like real annoying and just would go on a lot. And Dolly's like, yeah, oh gosh, she was just going on and on and on. And then Marina Gregg like got this weird look on her face. And I love this moment in the book, and it's in all of the adaptations except the one we're going to talk about today. Dolly says she looked just like the Lady of Shalott,
Mm-hmm.
which is a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson from the 19th century. It's very dramatic about this woman who has a curse, and it takes place in Camelot and so on. And anyway, it always reminds me of Anne of Green Gables when she was pretending. Did you remember Anne of Green Gables?
Mm-hmm.
She's pretending to be the Lady of Shalott. And the girls put her in the boat, and the boat leaks, and she sinks. And Dolly's waxing poetic now, and she's kind of getting carried away with herself, and she's like, oh, she looked like the Lady of Shalott. The mirror cracked from side to side. The doom has come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott. And that is not the correct quote. She misquotes it. And Miss Marple's like, yeah, okay, Dolly, like, calm down with yourself, and but she understands what Dolly's trying to say about like this weird realization kind of look of like, I've got to some kind of point of no return all of a sudden. And she shares that with her nephew, the cop, who then quotes, and the poem gets quoted over and over again. But he corrects the quote. It's not the doom that comes upon me, it's the curse that comes upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott, because she famously is cursed. So then she asks Cherry, because a lot of Cherry and her friends, the local young women of the village and the development, were hired to work as catering staff at the party. So Cherry has a good friend who was right there when all of the action was happening. She was right there in the center of it all, serving drinks. And the friend says, like, yeah, it was really weird. It was like um, she spilled her drink on, like, the drink was spilled on purpose. Heather Badcock's drink was spilled on purpose when Marina Gregg gave her drink. And she's recounting it in kind of a weird way. And we later learned that what she means is that Marina Gregg on purpose jostled Heather to make her drink spill and then give her own drink with a calmo in it, right, to kill her. So it's very, very fun. There's also a photographer as you mentioned, there's a photographer at the party. Margot, who we later learn is one of the children that Marina Gregg had adopted and then dropped like a hot potato when she got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And is very resentful about it, understandably. And she has shown up at the party kind of wanting to see, like, is she going to actually even, like, does she care about me? Yeah. Does she even care about me that she would recognize me when I'm right in her face? No, is the answer.
No, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, no, she really doesn't care. Again, like with Miss Marple, like a lot of times our victims are not that liked by people. They have things that they're not the greatest people.
Well,
they have
small
flaws.
Town life. I mean, people think small town life is ideal because everyone's so kind because everybody knows each other. And it's like any family, you get to know each other. You get to get on each other's nerves. Like,
yeah.
You get used to people's speech patterns and people that repeat themselves or repeat the same stories over again, or people that are cheap and never bring something to the party. Like, resentments can build in.
Oh, yes.
Is my point. Yeah.
So there's a lot of that goes on in the Miss Marple stories, which is very fun for the reader because you can all relate because we all have had that experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, so no, she doesn't recognize her, but Miss Marple puts it together that this photographer is probably one of these children that she adopted and
Abandoned.
then abandoned. Yes,
I mean, she gave them a
that's
life,
true.
but
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 yeah,
she dumped them.
as
I
a
mean,
parent, she
it's
definitely abandoned
terrible.
them.
Yeah.
And so she and Dolly book a photography session with Margot Bentz is her name. And at first they're chatting like, "Oh yeah, we're just good friends. We just wanted to have a photo taken to celebrate our friendship because we're good friends." And oh hey, Dolly bought that. Dolly used to live in Gossington Hall. They sold it to that Marina Gregg, and you were at that party, weren't you? And they basically, eventually, Margot's like, "Okay, what is up with you ladies? Like, why are you here?" And they say, like, "Hey, you were taking pictures." They kind of rule out right away that she's probably not involved in any of the murders.
Hmm.
But they say, "We know you were taking pictures. Do you happen to have a picture of this moment that my friend is talking about, like where she looks like the Lady of Shalott?" And Margot's like, "Yeah, actually, I think I do have a picture of that moment." And so she gives them the photo, and which they take back to the police, and it's a big part of them solving the mystery because it is kind of an inscrutable sort of expression. It's not angry, it's
Hmm.
not sad, but it's something's going on. And anyway, Miss Marple works out that she's like, "Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Heather said she got out of her sick bed and she slapped on a bunch of makeup. Why would she have to slap on a bunch of makeup? What's that about?" Um, oh, she must have been hiding something on her face. Like, well, what would she need to hide on her face? Oh, what if she had German measles and needed to hide the marks of the measles, to get into this event? And then she puts it all together. And in the book, um, unlike in this story, in the book, when Heather Badcock walks up to Marina at the party, her husband, his real name's Jason Rudd. Jason Rudd is right there with Marina. So Jason Rudd also hears Heather Badcock, and Jason Rudd also puts together like, "Oh no." Like, so Jason Rudd immediately, when Heather Badcock turns up dead, like from an overdose of Calmo that's all over the house,
Hmm.
it's not that hard to put it together. Like, okay, my wife just killed this woman,
I better
right?
keep an eye on her for
Yeah,
the next
yeah,
few
I better
days.
keep an eye on things. And so he is really trying. He really loves her. He is really trying to, like, let's get beyond this. Can we just go back to making this movie, please? But she's insisting on, like, my coffee's been poisoned. He's like, "Oh, great. Now I got to send the coffee to be analyzed." And yeah, okay, there's poison in the coffee. And then Ella, the assistant, turns up dead. And now his wife has killed two people. And he realizes there's no way, there's no happy ending for us ever again.
They're at the point
And
of no return.
they
She's
really
gone.
are. She
Yeah.
is really gone. And um so Miss Marple, uh, who, again, from her armchair, has put all of this together. One of the things she does is she tells Cherry to take her friend, whose name escapes me, who was at the party and saw everything. She's like, "You two girls get out of St. Mary Mead. Get out of here right now. You are in danger, girl. Go." And she gets her nephew, the police. She's like, "We got to go to Gossington Hall. Here's what's up. Now is the time where we reveal what happened." And she goes and she um they asked to speak to Marina Gregg, and everybody's like, "Oh, she's resting. Oh, she can't be disturbed," which is what they tell them every time they want to speak to Marina Gregg because she's very delicate. And they're like, "Well, we're just going to wait." Okay, well, she's not coming out. Fine. Well, I guess we're going to do this without her here. And so they reveal that, what happened, that the Heather Badcock revealed herself to be the person who is responsible for this awful thing, inadvertently, but she's bragging about it. Let's be honest, right?
Right.
And I mean, I can't even imagine. And so Marina Gregg sees this photo, the picture on the wall of, it's a Madonna and child, and she's, it's like she's losing her grip with reality in that moment is what's happening, and that's what that look is. And her husband is her husband, they're telling her husband everything he already knows. Like, he knows all of this. And he's looking a little bad himself. And so they reveal the whole thing. Like, this is what happened. This is why she killed Ella, the assistant, because Ella was making those blackmail phone calls. And when she called, of course, she also called Marina Gregg with a blackmail phone call. She was just stabbing around at calling people in the dark. She didn't know who the real murderer was, but she accidentally called the real murderer and was like, okay, I guess Ella's got to go now, because she recognized her voice. So Paul, realizing that, like, this is going to be so bad for Marina, he again, spoiling everything, he poisons her. And so presumably he goes to jail. Oh no, he doesn't go to jail. He poisons her, but everyone sort of agrees. They're gonna all just agree that she did it herself. She poisoned herself.
She overdosed.
She overdosed on the calmo
and she
that
did
she
it
was
on
so fond of.
and she did it on purpose.
Yes.
And so that's what they're going to decide to do. And
Yeah.
it's what he set up, because he loves her and he doesn't want her to kill more people. And
right. He's got to stop her.
He's got to stop her somehow. And she couldn't last, like, we're being in a mental hospital or something, like going through a trial. It wouldn't make it. So this is his way of, like, out of love, is letting her go. And that's the end of the story.
That's it. Back to life at St. Mary Mead.
Yeah. But it's great.
It's really fun. They just, and it's all just, the characters are so interesting. Yeah, it's a very fun book. I really, really enjoyed it.
So there have been several adaptations. I mean, many, many, many radio plays. I listened to a couple of them. There's a BBC version. There's an ITV version, and then there's a version that came out in 1980, which is the one we talked about. It is the easiest probably to get your hands on. It's directed by Guy Hamilton, and it's Angela Lansbury playing our Miss Marple.
Yes, and Guy Hamilton, who we talked about earlier this month when we talked about Evil Under the Sun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play the trailer, maybe.
Yeah,
and then get to our many, many, many notes.
Yeah, yeah, we got a lot to. We have a lot to get through, y'all.
Oh yeah.
Bit closer, please, ladies.
When massive doses of ego.
Lola, dear, you know there are really only two things I dislike about you.
Really? What are they?
Your face.
Mix with lethal traces of poison. There's no business like show business.
Aren't they? I know it.
I can feel it. I can almost hear them coming. Danger in the dark. MGM 1932.
Against such rave performances, even two of the world's greatest detectives are baffled.
Murder is a very dangerous business. If one gets mixed up in it, one must be prepared for the consequences.
In fact, they hardly stood a chance. Until the moment, the mirror cracked.
We should bring in Alexander for my hair.
Lamb chop, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. Queen Elizabeth was bald.
Not in this movie, she ain't.
Elizabeth Taylor, Tony Curtis, Kim Novak, Edward Fox, Rock Hudson, Geraldine Chaplin, and Agatha Christie's mystery classic, The Mirror Cracked. If you guess who done it, you may be next.
The world of the cinema, the village, it's all quite the same, really.
She could be wrong, you know.
She's not. I've seen the picture.
The Mirror Cracked.
Snake-eyed son of a...
I have to say, like, when they do these, when they have like a Murder, She Wrote, or they do TV movies, or even the BBC ones, like, they're great actors and they're great character actors, but they're like, this person's a movie star. And you're like, okay, when they do these films and the movie star is Elizabeth Taylor, just at her most gorgeous, I think, like with
She's
that purple,
just
the
beautiful.
the hat, the flower of the hat, and her gorgeous eyes and the way she's talking. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get why people would just stop what they were doing and just
She was
stare.
never not stunning.
Right.
So, okay. First of all, let's go through the cast. We have Angela. One of the fun things about this movie is who's in it and their history with each other. So we have Angela Lansbury and Elizabeth Taylor, who famously played sisters in National Velvet.
Oh,
Remember Angela
I've
Lansbury
never
is her
seen
older.
National Velvet.
Oh, it's really good.
I remember the remake in the 70s.
She is spectacular in National Velvet. Child star Elizabeth Taylor, next level. I mean, she's always good. She's always good. But National Velvet is she's so wonderful in that book. I mean, in that movie. And Angela Lansbury plays her older sister in that film. Then we have Rock Hudson as Jason Rudd. Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor played a married couple in Giant.
Right. And they were besties in real life.
Super close friends.
And she was one of his beards. I mean, she was one of the people that she had a lot of gay friends. And he was they were very, very close. Tony Curtis as Marty Fern, which
wonderful.
Is Marty Fern. Oh, he's so good.
He's really good.
He's great.
I'm really not mad at anybody's
cast
performance.
Is great. Nobody's wrong. I mean,
no.
Yeah.
And then we have Kim Novak as Lola Brewster is wonderful. Why was she never cast in Dynasty? I was like, this is straight out of Dynasty. These two, I love the two of them together. They're wonderful.
That's
the two of them being Kim Novak and Elizabeth Taylor sniping at each other, as we just saw. Ella Zielinski is played by a young Geraldine Chaplin.
Always good.
Always good.
Mm-hmm.
I love her in this role. She really is. Edward Fox, I think, is wonderful as Inspector Dermot Craddock, who is Jane Marple's nephew, as we discussed. Wendy Morgan as Cherry, I think, is really good. Interestingly, so here's one of the choices. So again, this is all about the choices to me. Like, what I don't like about this is the story choices, really. And as we've said all month long, typically when you have an Agatha Christie adaptation, they are allowed a certain, it's fun to see what they do with the story. They make changes, they take characters away, they add other characters, they put other elements in the backstories and so on and so forth. One of the story choices that I really dislike, that I think is such an important element in the book and is not in the movie like at all, is the absolute underuse of Dolly. Dolly is Miss Marple's bestie. Dolly is the one that's given her the scoop. Dolly is the one who was the eyewitness. And Dolly is the one who says she looked like the Lady of Shalott.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, we barely see Dolly. She's played by Margaret Courtenay. And it's a very uninteresting, she's given nothing to do. We barely see her. But fortunately for us, in the Joan Hickson version of this story, Margaret Courtenay plays the horribly annoying Miss Knight, and she's wonderful as Miss Knight. I love her as that, and I would have loved to have seen her do more with Dolly. I don't know why we made that choice. So the whole quoting about the Lady of Shalott, like Miss Marple quotes it like out of nowhere. Why? Why are you doing that? Let's not like her to do that. Anyway, choices.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I dislike. Also, although I enjoy the sniping between Kim Novak and Elizabeth Taylor very, very much, how could you not?
Right.
They're having so much fun. You could just tell, like, they're really having fun, and that's cool. I like it. But Lola's sniping is like really mean. She's making fun of this woman's nervous breakdown, for which she had to be like hospitalized, and like really. And she's making fun of the fact that she had a child born with developmental disabilities. Like, what is wrong with you? Who does that?
Yeah, Lola's not very nice.
He's not very nice at all. And but I love and I love Tony Curtis. I think is a wonderful choice for that character. I think, and yeah, I'm not mad at the acting at all. There's a lot of the story choices I really don't like. And the opening is one of them. Like in the opening,
We have that clip actually for the
oh yeah,
opening.
let's play the clip just so y'all can see, and then we'll talk about the makeup situation.
So she's in her 50s.
She's
Angela
okay.
Lansbury.
She's 6 or 7 years older than Elizabeth Taylor. And listen, look, she's Angela Lansbury. Can she play 20 years older than Elizabeth Taylor? Of course she can.
And we're talking about, she also played the mother in the spy movie.
Manchurian Candidate.
Thank you. The Manchurian Candidate.
Where she mopped the floor with that movie.
Wow.
Now, but I mean, please tell, what is the secret? What on earth is Miss Marple using on her neck and hands to keep them so youthful looking? What is this makeup? Her face is a totally different color than the whole rest of her body. You can see there's a scene, and it's in the trailer, which we just showed. There's a scene where she sits bolt upright in the middle of the night where she remembers something or thinks to do something, to do with the case. And you can see the applied bags. Like you could practically see the spirit gum like on her. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Just let her she can do it.
Yeah.
Let Lansbury. Stop it.
Yeah, ease up on the makeup and the hair dye and the pallor of the skin, and it's just very odd. Yeah,
it's almost distracting. It
is a little distracting, and
she's doing a fabulous job. Stop
I know,
it.
but the makeup is terrible.
It's so bad.
It is so bad, and it's like that's how they open the movie. Like that's how we get to know her, and so it's kind of hard to kind of go back to it, especially when you see the other versions of how they. Yeah, so I mean, it's clever that they have the movie theater, like had the movie go out and such. So I do like that. Like they're establishing that she's very clever. She knows, she knows how to solve a mystery. But it's such bad hair and makeup and wardrobe. Like the whole thing is just sort of, it's wearing her. She's not wearing it.
Exactly.
And she's a good enough and strong enough actor that she can do the part. Like she doesn't need all that stuff. She doesn't need all those accoutrements.
No, not in the least. And Elizabeth Taylor, I mean, she of course she brought her own hairdresser. So Elizabeth Taylor has her own glam squad that is responsible for her in this film. So that's why she looks amazing, glowing, perfect.
Her skin,
flawless skin. And let us not forget, do not forget, this film she is shooting right at the end of her John Warner years, like her worst period of her life where she was just pillaged in the press for, God forbid, she should put on a couple of pounds. And being the hostess, the political hostess, she should never have married that man.
Joan Rivers told the worst jokes about her, horrible, mean jokes. Yeah, about Elizabeth Taylor.
And look at her.
Believe me,
gorgeous.
I know. And she's beautiful. That's the whole point. Like she's also stunning.
I mean, God love her, man. She also was somebody with a real, like, did not take herself too seriously. And here you have Kim Novak hurling the fat jokes at Elizabeth Taylor, and she's like a ninja. Like it's just not even phasing her in the least. And it's and we as the audience get to enjoy it because she looks amazing. She's a radiant angel from heaven. So yeah, and I feel like the cutting off of the knees of the use of Dolly is really hurting this movie. Miss Marple, it's like I said, it just doesn't have the bubbly kind of cozy lightness of the book or the other adaptations that we see. And also we don't get the house is such a character in this story as it is in the body in the library. Um, I feel like we don't quite get the opulence and awe at what the Hollywoodification of the house. Um,
The marble bathroom is pretty cool. I mean,
it is impressive, and her bedroom in that last scene
it's great.
it's quite something.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing that I don't like, uh, I don't know why we made this choice. Rock Hudson's character, Jason Rudd, is fully having a thing with the secretary, Ella, played by
Yeah. And
in a really creepy way.
he's in on it. And I don't know if they have something or he's just stoking her along or whatever. But yeah, I don't like it either.
And it makes you question his motives for the whole
Right.
thing. Why?
He's always acting like he's completely in love with Elizabeth Taylor. Like
But is he lying? We don't know.
Is he setting himself up for his next?
In the stories, in the book and in the other adaptations, it's more that it's number one, she is totally in love with him. There's that. Number two, there's a hint, a whiff that maybe at some point there was some circumstance, maybe when Marina was away, having her nervous breakdown, maybe in a vulnerable moment, they had like a moment. And that a moment that Ella is wanting to turn into a relationship. And he's like, no, that was just a moment.
Right.
You got to stop trying to push for this thing because it's not happening. Stop trying to make fetch happen, Ella.
Right.
And that's really her. It's a very important part of her character and his. He really does ultimately really love his wife. Otherwise, you're like, did he kill her because he wanted to bump her off so he could be free to go? Like, it's very different. It really throws a yucky light on him for the whole thing, I feel.
Yeah.
Love Tony Curtis. Not enough Tony Curtis, I feel.
He needed to be in there much more, especially with that terrible rug that he's wearing.
Oh,
yes.
so good. It's really
great. Yeah. I mean, there's an energy that's kind of lacking in this. That's kind of,
yeah.
And it's too bad because they have such great material and interesting actors. Like,
okay. Also, when we talked about one of the things I really loved about Murder Under the Sun, that's what it was called, right? The one that we did earlier this month. It was Murder Under the Sun, right? The Poirot one with Peter Ustinov, where they swap bodies on the beach. Evil Under the Sun. Thank you. That's what it's called. Thought that wasn't quite right. Which is also directed by Guy Hamilton. One of the things I really loved about that movie was the score. The score was like really subtle. I think it was Cole Porter, just like instrumental. Sometimes it was a little sadder. Sometimes it was a little kind of funny. Sometimes, it was really serving the movie. Here we've got some kind of like weird adult film saxophone stuff going. Like, what is this? Saxophone? Where are we? What is happening? I don't get it. And unlike there was just some weird choices like that. And the carnival event thing is supposed to be, as we said, a fundraiser for the charity that Heather Badcock works for. That's why she gets ushered into the house, because she's like their top volunteer, right? In this movie, it's made into like a Coronation Day event. It's like a Coronation Day celebration, which is odd. Then why are you meeting the local like volunteer lady? Also, Heather Badcock in this film, Heather Badcock is described in tremendous detail in the book. She's a frumpy, she's a little kind of squat, little frumpy lady. She's she's got, what do they call this thing I have now? A menopause. She's got like that kind of thing going on. And whereas in this movie, she's like this adorable little like ingenue. What is that with no husband? Okay. I don't get it. I don't understand the choices. Now one of the choices that I think is also very, very weird, but did enjoy is the fact that she's the movie that she's supposedly making is about Mary Queen of Scots. And Kim Novak gets cast as Queen Elizabeth, which is hilarious. All of that I think is very, very funny. And we get to see this amazing moment. In the other ones, it's like an Egyptian movie, because again, we have to have that little Egyptian element because it's Agatha Christie. But in this film, we get to see her, Elizabeth Taylor, playing Mary Queen of Scots with a fun co-star.
Is that our next clip, Marta?
Yeah, let's play it.
That's
delicious.
Pierce Brosnan. Baby Pierce Brosnan.
Little baby Pierce Brosnan with no lines.
I also like Kim Novak. There's a scene where like they have her, it's so low cut, her outfit, that it just barely covers just barely covers the nips. And there's a long scene where she's talking to the inspector and he's trying to be like, where do my eyes go? She's very funny. She's super game.
Yeah, they're very fun. Again, not mad at the performances at all. I think with what they had to work with, you can't do it better than they did it. It's Elizabeth Taylor is absolutely wonderful. We see her, we learn later that she's acting the entire time, but we get to see her do she has a lot of fun stuff to do in this movie. Which is, I think, the only thing that makes it at all sit throughable.
I have to say, I liked it better the second time I saw it.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoyed it. It's you and I were talking back and forth yesterday because I was watching it for the first time, and you were talking about BritBox, and I think I let my BritBox subscription lapse, but I corrected that. I started it up again, so I went back and watched it, and there's just an amazing versions there that are.
They're really good. So the Julia Mackenzie one is so much fun because Dolly, her bestie, is played by Joanna Lumley of AbFab, who plays that character in an earlier episode of The Body in the Library. And Joanna Lumley is so wonderful in that adaptation. She's Dolly. She's funny. She's a little bit like not as sharp a knife as her bestie Miss Marple, but she's doing her best to keep up. And Julie Mackenzie's Miss Marple I really love, is very sensitive and very astute. But the Joan Hickson one, and again, Joan Hickson is as a very young woman, Agatha Christie was like, oh, she's going to be Miss Marple.
Right.
Joan Hickson, I think, might be the best Miss Marple, and her adaptation, which is the one that's on BritBox, is the most close to the book. They still take some liberties here and there and cut some things out, but her Miss Marple, and to have Miss Marple with the Miss Knight character, that I think that is so important to this story too, to have this woman who like totally underestimates Miss Marple and like thinks she's got to like stir her tea practically for her. And to have Miss Marple like chafing at that, I'm like, ugh, get out of my face, lady. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And I love the Heather, that whole cast I really love. I think that might be the best adaptation. They're both really super good and very enjoyable, and you can watch them over and over and over again and see different things every single time. This one is fun too, but but the fun elements of the story are not there for some reason that I'm not
Yeah.
understanding. As much as I love, of course, Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson are
Right.
going to be magic together because they are.
Yes.
They're, of course.
Stars. They're real.
Yeah.
They're besties. I mean, we get that. Yeah.
And yeah, everybody has wonderful chemistry with everybody else. It's really just the story choices and like the weird music and the very heavy-handed makeup on everybody but Elizabeth Taylor, who, as we said, brought her own glam squad.
She was, yeah.
Very smart. Yeah, I think Geraldine Chaplin is doing a great job. I really hate that choice though of them like actually having something cooking. I think is a
Yeah.
bad choice.
I don't like it
It makes
either.
it
Yeah.
icky. Yeah. So, book or movie? If we're just talking about this movie,
I'll take the book.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed the story. Like I said, I listened to a radio play of it. I've watched different versions of it. So I do like the story and I like Miss Marple.
You know what else is totally cut out of this movie?
What?
Margot.
Yeah.
So she's like there at the party taking pictures, but we never circle back to her. Ugh, just
It's a missed opportunity. It's a swing and a miss.
Yeah, definitely. So book for me too. If we're just talking about this, I gotta say book. But I cannot recommend enough the other two, the Joan Hickson and the Julia Mackenzie adaptations of this story. I think both of them are excellent. And the Julia Mackenzie has its own like choices that they made, but I think they are good and they work. Unlike here.
Right.
So yeah. Because we're supposed to suspect Margot. We the reader, like when you read that in the book, you're like, oh, maybe this daughter that she dropped like a hot potato is the one who was
her revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So but what a fun month.
Yeah, no, this was really fun. I'm glad we did this. This was super, super fun. So we're into June next, with June is Pride Month.
Yeah.
And so you came up with a really interesting idea. I saw this movie.
Oh, really?
A long time ago, because I really like one of the stars of this movie.
Oh, I've never seen it. So I'm excited. I certainly have not read the book.
No. So the book, it's called Breakfast with Scott.
That's what it's called. Thank you.
And it's a young boy that's being raised by two dads. And basically it's what that means for them. And they're not very flamboyant dads. So these are very mild gays. They're not like, you and I talked about The Boys in the Band a couple of years ago.
So and the Birdcage. Yeah.
Right. We've had some very flamboyant, this is not that.
But if I remember, again, I just read about it. I have not read the book yet, but I think it's that one of the men who's raising this boy is closeted, right? Or he's closeted at work or something like that.
I think he was a hockey player, and now he's a a hockey sports guy. And it's in Toronto, so it makes sense. Like it's, in Canada, hockey is king. So that would be. Yeah, it's so funny how there's no gay baseball players, basketball players, hockey players.
I wonder why that is. It just seems so strange. I guess they're just not interested in participating in that part of society in any way.
It's just it's kind of odd. I mean, because it kind of seems like it's a little dated and like, well, no, how many out hockey players are there? How many out?
Even now, yeah.
Even now. They wait years until after they retire. Some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it'll be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I'm really, the book sounds very interesting. The movie is from 2007. The book is from 1999. It's by Tufts University professor Michael Downing. So we'll be kicking off Pride Month with Breakfast with Scott.
But we're going to be looking for suggestions. So there are a lot of places you can reach out to us. There is a basic Facebook page, book versus movie, but we're much more interactive in our private Facebook group, which is Book VS Movie Podcast Group. You have to ask to join, and we do just talk about books and movies there. We're on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and at those places you spell out book versus and movie. And then we have an old-timey email, book versus movie podcast, spelled it out, at gmail.com. All those are places where you could send us your ideas. And if you want to support the show, you can support us via Patreon. We've been doing the show for 10 years, so we have about everything from 2022 and then previous to that we're putting on our Patreon wall. So I just put up there the 7-year itch that we did record that episode like 2 years ago. Joy Luck Club, The Postman Always Rings Twice. Those are ones we did a couple of years ago. They're now only on our Patreon wall. Coming up, we have Gaslight, The Spy Who Loved Me, and The Boys in the Band. We recorded those episodes a couple of years ago. They're going to be going on our Patreon wall. You can also on Patreon, I didn't have mentioned this before, I put all these episodes for ad-free on their Patreon wall if you sign up for Patreon, because I know there's a lot of ads in there, and we're glad for the ads, but sometimes they can be a little much, so that they're ad-free if you sign up for Patreon. You can also sign up for Patreon for free. We put all the clips that you see in the show, we put them in there. And we have old episodes, like way in the past, that are free. You can go check out our Patreon page. It's really interesting.
And I don't know if we mentioned at the top of the show, but we, as Margot said, we are constantly looking for suggestions. We have a few ground rules, though, that,
Yes.
that just to bear in mind. Number one, the film has to be streaming on a major platform. Number two, we have to be able to easily get our hands on the source material. So it doesn't have to be a book. It could be a magazine article or a novella or a play or a song or a poem. As long as it's a film that's been adapted from some other kind of original source, it is on the table. We just have to be able to get our hands on that source material and be able to see the movie on a streaming platform. So, Marco, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick. I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick for Threads and Instagram. I'm at brooklynfitchick.com. I'm at Brooklyn Margot for Blue Sky and TikTok. And then I'm at my name for YouTube, which is Margot Donahue. And where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all my social media callouts are at She's Nacho Mama.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back soon with a new episode.
I think, we have one more clip. I thought you had used them all. We have one more.